Hi, I'm a frickin' nutcase, and I thought it was high time I did a review of the Honda ST1300 I spent the last season with. During that time, I've taken weekend trips, day trips, commuted, and a 2-week cross-country tour. So while I'm not a professional motorcycle journalist, I have spent a lot of time on it, and the most important thing, I spent my own hard-earned money on it. So what did I find as some of the best features on this bike? The standout feature to me is the engine and then the windscreen, and I guess the fairing. The engine is a broad torque curve, no vibrations, basically from idle right up to redline, silky smooth, pulls in any gear, just an absolute standout engine. The windscreen, or maybe the full fairing with the adjustable windscreen, with the windshield all the way down, you get a bit of wind on the body and in your face. Fantastic on the warmer days. Yet in the bad weather, slide that windshield all the way up, and it doesn't just slide up on an angle, but it also flattens out a little bit near the top. And it's basically like a big barn door you're then looking through. You got a warm, dry bubble of air in the most inclement weather. Absolutely fantastic windscreen and fairing. Other big pluses are the range of the bike. Now the fuel economy is not too great, but what do you expect from a 1+ liter bike? I averaged around 42 miles a gallon, and that's in a mix of sort of city and did a little bit sort of back road touring. Did a little better on those sort of rides. But with the large fuel tank, the 7.7 gallon, 29-ish liter tank, means that no matter where you are, you're not really worried about gas in the far out places. The brakes are fantastic, as is the handling. Somewhere I read that the bike having been designed in the late 1990s, basically the handling and the brakes are sport bike DNA from that era, and I can say they are really fantastic. The integrated luggage is waterproof, works amazingly well, fits the bike, and is good hard storage. Now, if there's a lot of pluses, there's a couple of minuses. For me, being a shorter rider with about a 29-inch inseam, I found the bike to be fairly high and fairly top-heavy, especially when it's full of gas. So just when you need low-speed maneuvering to be the best at a gas station after topping up is when you have to be the most careful. I also found that with my inseam, I wasn't able to get a whole lot of weight on my feet. So backing out of a little incline, no, you got to be careful where you park it. The other thing is if you're pulling in a roadside that's gravelly and off camber, I definitely found that a bit of a challenge. The other big minus is the heat. Now, a lot of people have talked about the heat. Maybe being Canadian, I'm a little more sensitive than the others. But yeah, she's definitely a hot bike. Now, I did some experimenting on a warm summer day last year, where riding down the road, I sort of just threw my knees out in as far out as I could and let them suck air onto me. And I found it remarkably refreshing. Very uncomfortable, but remarkably refreshing. And that sort of tells me the fairing that does such an amazing job of isolating you from the oncoming wind blast also is sort of cocooning that heat into you. So that's an area where I think Honda could do a little bit of work if they're going to revise the bike. Maybe have some sort of fairing vents, open for warm days to get air and airflow over you, close them up to keep you dry and warm on the cooler days. The visibility of the dashboard, it's a sort of an old school LED light emitting diode versus some of the newer LCD displays. And in bright sunlight, yeah, especially if you're wearing sunglasses, not that visible. It is a fairly Spartan bike. About its only creature comfort is that adjustable windscreen. What does it need if I was, looking at the next generation of ST? Thinking primarily as a touring bike. Definitely you need cruise control. I fitted a Kyoko throttle lock, and that helps on the longer days. I did several 12, 14-hour day rides, and without an ability to sort of rest your right hand, you stretch it out. So the throttle lock was there, but that's nothing compared to cruise. Talked about that fairing airflow. Don't mess with it for the protection on the cold days, but I wouldn't mind some sort of adjustability to get some more air on the rider. And the one thing I did notice is the ECM, engine control module, is just a little bit dated. Sort of from an off throttle to an on, it's kind of abrupt, almost like a loose chain, if you're familiar with chain-driven bikes. Kind of a jerky. Now that's probably due to an early generation fuel injection control system. A lot of the modern bikes, a lot of Honda's newer bikes are going with ride-by-wire, and as such you can add cruise control very, very easily. So a new engine control module combined with some ride-by-wire, I think would address a lot of the needs. Might also help and improve fuel economy a little bit, which would be a real win-win. So who is this bike for? As I said, I did all sorts of riding, from commuting to long touring, and I didn't find it was the best city commuter. It's a big, heavy bike. It was hot, as I've said, and not my first choice for commuting. That said, if your commuting does involve a lot of back roads or highway, it's fantastic because that's where the bike really shines. But for me, it is and will always be the consummate one-up touring machine. Backseat accommodations are a little Spartan. You'd have to add a top case. There's no backrest. A little tight and cramped back there for a passenger. But if you ride one up, you're not going to find a better bike. Lots of space to store all your gear. Fantastic handling, handles far better than a bike of its size and weight should, as well as brakes much better. The engine is strong, it pulls, it can carve canyons, it can cruise the highways, it can cruise the back roads. Just an absolutely fantastic touring bike, great long weekend bike. So if you're in the market for a bike, you like to tour and travel one up, have a look at a used ST1300 or even a new ST1300, as they've got a long, reliable history. The motors have, 200,000 miles is not uncommon to hear these motors going. Durable bike, reliable build. You can't beat a Honda for reliability. So if you're looking for a one-up touring bike, take a good look, take a test drive on an ST1300. I think you'll be happy with what you find. I'm a frickin' nutcase.